John Nayduch. He is going to be talking to us about offsetting your database marketing through vendor partnerships. Who was here for his class a few weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? Yeah. So we are super excited to welcome him back. We do have people on Zoom as well, John, just so you know. We'll be monitoring the chat for any questions that come in. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to John.
All right, so offsetting your database marketing. So who here has a database? Right, that's great. Great. So today we're basically going to do a training on how to offset any expenses that you have that has to do with your database. Okay, and traditionally, if you kind of look at this slide here, the reason I'm presenting this is because marketing often comes with a big kind of, I don't know, monkey on your shoulder or something. You know, a lot of the agents would throw 100% of the cost in those cases. Which then ultimately, you know, there's never any sort of structure or anything to the business. And then there's a lot of angst and anxiety around actually, you know, putting some sort of money into your business and seeing some sort of return. So it never just kind of gets off the ground. So what if your database marketing could be like partially or even fully offset by some sort of partnership? In my case, or with my clients, I call them brand ambassador programs. You can call them whatever you want. When marketing feels expensive, consistency ultimately drops. You kind of put your time and effort into other things that might not be in lead generation, and then you ultimately are just missing any sort of opportunities to help any new buyers or sellers. And then when you do come up with an idea to generate some sort of partnership with somebody, it always seems like spontaneous and last minute, right? So you're like, oh no, what am I supposed to say to this person, right? You know, give me some money for what, right? Yeah. So the opportunity that you're likely overlooking is that your databases are very valuable. Okay. So you have a curated database, you have a list of people. You know, now I'm sure all your database sizes are, you know, all over the place. You know, some might be smaller, like a top 20 or a top 100, versus sometimes I talk to people and they have their top people are 3,000-4,000 people, and then they have like a larger digital database of 20-some thousand people. Okay, so your database is super valuable. Not that you are trustworthy and influence in your community and in your industry. Okay. You likely have some sort of marketing distribution if you have a database touch system already in place. All right. And then the most important in today's world is face-to-face access to your people. All right. And when I say that, so the marketing distribution part likely hits air latency. So you're going to hit digital, potentially some print. You know, you're appeasing all behavioral profiles, but the real important one is actually getting face-to-face with your people. Okay. On the flip side of that, vendors want visibility, they want access, they want relationship and credibility. Okay, so everything that you already offer. All right. Just got to put some sort of system to it. So going back to that spontaneous ask, just trying to set a little bit of mindset here. So shifting from one-off ask to how do I strategically partner with my people? All right. We're not just selling ad space. So what does a brand ambassador program look like? So it's an aligned system where vendors are basically supporting your marketing ecosystem, right? You intentionally promote them and connect them with people that are in your list. Both parties grow through shared visibility and trust. So what this is it's a strategic integration, right? It's not just some sort of thing where you're like, hey, you want your logo placed here, give me some money, right? The big thing that I kind of going back to the strategic system versus just a one-off kind of pay-to-play ads is you know when you're selling an investor a home, right? You're talking about ways to generate income from an investment property, you know, there's likely two different things. There's cash flow and then there's long-term wealth, right? Similar kind of dynamic here, you know. For those people that are just spontaneous, I would consider that more of a cash flow thing versus putting some sort of structured system in place where this is going to make your business wealthy, okay? Not just to have some money that month, right? So now this is where I'm going to ask for a little bit of engagement and interaction. So defining your marketing ecosystem. Clarify the database touches that you already consistently do. By showing hands, and also a little bit of engagement and participation, what sort of touches are opportunities up there? How do you guys send out your touches? What sort of media? What sort of things do you do? What sort of effort do you put in place?
The first three.
First three? Is there anything outside of those that was the five things there, five things that somebody does?
I use reminder me,
Okay.
lifestyle magazine.
Okay, gotcha.
Within there, because I have that, I also continue the digital system, I can do a lot of advertising through them. So next year, $49 a month in addition to my magazine.
Yeah.
I can reach 400 or 500 people with as many email cycles for them.
Now, is that, now that email list is your personal database,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
Awesome. Now, that said, I think that could potentially be around like a print, you know what I mean, like mail. But these are pretty much, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like community groups, so I guess that's social in some capacity, but like Facebook community.
Or, you know, that might be just potentially friends.
Okay,
Would you say?
sure.
Face to face.
Well, no, it's just community groups on social media.
Oh, on social, oh, I see.
Yeah, so I guess it would go on.
No,
like-
No groups, no, so I understand. Okay, that is separate from events for sure. Okay. But social, potentially social memory. So yeah, the reason I asked is that I just didn't know if there's anything else out there that I'm potentially missing that might be able to attract or get in front of other people. When I boil it down, it's likely all that. So that said, once you have an understanding of what you currently do, right? So hey, I have this isn't part of my database program. You know, I know of people that have like 12 touch programs all the way up to people that have like a 200-300 touch system throughout the year, right? So as long as you can understand the quantify the number of touches, you can then understand, you know, at an annual basis, you know, an aggregate, like how much am I spending each year on all my touches, right? Then you want to take your touches and then kind of understand who's in your audience, right? So how many people am I actually getting in front of each year, right? So you understand your reach. The frequency is more about impressions. So while you might have the same reach, you might be touching into them multiple times throughout the year. Obviously, your touch points and all that, so you're going to clear all that out. And then any additional value that you can potentially give to your people. For example, it doesn't necessarily have to be about an actual touch point. It could be, I know I coach some groups and they have like positive focuses each morning, right? So like their team kind of huddles for about half an hour and they go through their team and they all give something positive that happened within the last 24 hours, you know. They sometimes invite in their brand ambassador members to kind of get face to face with the agents, right? So things like that, anything that in addition to what you're already doing, you know, so it's not necessarily automated, there would be an additional value driver that you can kind of share. So quantify all that. Then you got to understand who are my partners, like who do I need? So I was told this statistic once, I don't know how real it is in today's world. But I was told at one point, when a property goes under contract, there's likely 15 other things that had to happen for that to happen. Okay, so like, example, you have a landscaper, the pressure washing company that went out, you know, cleaned up the yard, sprayed off the house, potentially a cleaner that came in and cleaned the house. Then maybe there was a roof repair that needed to be done pre-listing, you know, you had a roofer, right? So who is already in your ecosystem, you know, that serves your same audience, right? Again, 15 likely 15 other things outside the actual real estate kind of agent's responsibilities that are going on in the transaction.
Do we have anywhere in any of our websites or shares, a list of all of these people? But I know I have my, I know everybody here has their own set of guys. Is there like a common place that we?
I'm
The water agents are a vendor sheet or something, yes, it's in the Facebook,
Sorry?
it's in the Facebook,
Okay.
yeah.
So that would be a great resource potentially, right? Check out that. So people that value long-term relationships, right? That understand again, going back to the cash flow versus wealth kind of analogy, you know, the wealth of business, right? Have marketing budget. So when you kind of get into this stuff here, mortgage, title, insurance, just know they're likely bigger regional, national companies where they understand marketing. They know it's important to attract people into the world, that they already have these budgeted and allocated to give to different agents, right? And probably most important, a lot of people values, right? So you don't want to, just because somebody has money and is willing to give you money, you don't want to work with them, right? Unless they are appropriately serving your clients the way you would do the same thing, right? Obviously, rep club. So I have this list of potential people, right? And this is just very vague, elementary level type vendor opportunities, right? So mortgage, title, insurance, financial planning, contractors, staging, landscaping, movers, service providers, etc. Obviously, talk to your broker about any RESPA compliance and what that looks like and how much money you can collect from each person. But it doesn't necessarily have to be people that are in the real estate industry or tied to it or serve the industry. It could just be that you have people in your database that you strongly are passionate about and want to promote. You might have a best friend that, who knows, I don't know, that is, I'm trying to think of a random job, that is, sure, you know, I'm into mental health therapist, my wife's, but yeah, anybody, or for example, some teams I work with, they have things like beef farmers, right? It's not like you can say, hey, so-and-so, Mr. Buyer, thanks for settling in our area here. Now that you live in this neighborhood, you should go use this local beef farmer for all your beef needs, right? It's not like that. These small businesses are small businesses and likely don't have marketing departments. So when they see this additional exposure and the reach opportunities, they're like, heck, I don't have to hire a in-house marketing person. I can just tap into this person's database for a small little fee monthly and get that exposure that way, right? So
Sometimes even with the smaller ones, just a business card exchange, and then you do bilateral referrals.
sure, yeah.
And that goes zero.
Yeah. So the thing is though, we're trying to ultimately get all your marketing offset here, right? Okay, so with that, that's a great segue. So, so how do you define the exchange for marketing? Right? So you basically, again, no different than if you were out there listing a property, going on a listing presentation. This is the same sort of process, the same sort of thing. So obviously, never talk about money, yeah, until you've proven your value first, right? So what do they get? And this is just something general or generic. Every different brand ambassador program will be kind of committed to you and what value you can personally prove, right? But that said, consistent exposure, face-to-face impressions, multimedia impressions, you know, they're going to be omnipresent based on the brands that tap into it. Video collaboration, warm introduction, right? They want that kind of that warm handoff. You know, they don't want to have to get a lead from you and then go and have to like take 2 years to nurture it and convert it, right? It should be warm. And then you, in you know, the reciprocation will receive annual contribution, partnership, right? Shared promotion, because it's not only your stuff that you're setting out these touches. Now these people are like, you know what? Can I share that to my database, right? I'm involved in your marketing. Now I want you to be tapped in. And now there's potentially another 1,000 people you can get, right? And then ultimately marketing sustainability, right? Which is kind of like the first couple of slides that people don't ever really invest in because they're afraid of it. But this makes it easy and you don't even really have to worry about that. Mutual Pro. Okay. So, structure, so going back to the listing presentation, you have to give them some sort of value, show them something, hey, if you're actually gonna invest in my company, this is what you're gonna get in exchange, right? This is very difficult, but ultimately they just need some sort of visual, right? You can make these as big and as large as possible, but ultimately you just wanna make sure it's, there's a lot of clarification around what they're gonna get in exchange for anything they're investing into.
This is a good approach because it helps you get past, the what's in it for me, viewpoint, right? What's in it for me?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, this is ultimately you are seeking something with this, right? You're seeking some offset, and yet you're giving a tremendous amount of value too. So it's like, it's just opening up your minds to realizing that, hey, my asset here is my database, and a lot of people want access to it. So let's just help each other out, So then you come up with some sort of value proposition, right? You put some sort of graphical thing together. There's a menu. They can show the value. They understand what they're going to get in exchange for any sort of, investment that they're doing. And you start. So again, don't start with price. Sometimes a lot of that kind of just immediately kills your conversion. And yet these are likely very, very highly converted partners, right? These are probably not people who are just like, oh, I do 10 and I might get 1. These are probably you do 10 and you might get 10. You know what I mean? So that said, you still have to go through this process of listening, sharing your vision, sharing your value, your reach, painting the picture of what it looks like to be a brand ambassador with your business, right? And then I'm looking, and just kind of give them a little pitch. Looking 4 to 6. Hoping to sign, get them implemented here in the next couple of weeks. Would you like to be added to this based on what you see here? Right. So that's pretty much the process. Okay. Then it's just kind of like you gotta just kind of manage it afterwards, right? But just to kind of show you some examples, if you were to basically convert 4 partners at $250 each. It's 12 grand a year in offset, right? There's all sorts of things you can do at $12,000, right? Okay. The teams that I coach and that I work with, a lot of them are generating $30,000 to $40,000 a year by these things. Okay, it is super simple if you're just in a relationship with your people and you provide love and value to them, right? Because again, a lot of them don't have any sort of marketing knowledge, or they don't have marketing support. They don't have an easy button just to be tapped into somebody else's database that's already strongly built on trust too, right? Because these aren't cold lists. These are warm, highly convertible lists, right? So 12 grand a year can fund, depending on now events, granted that should be a huge asterisk around that, because sometimes I coach with clients and one event costs them $500, and sometimes costs them $15,000, right? So it really depends on what you're doing, but they're all over the board. You can get the direct mail, appreciation gifts, and then ultimately the most important is consistency. Right? Gary Keller wrote the 33 Touch Plan 25 years ago, and it still lives up today based on consistency. If you were to rewrite the model today, you'd be like, yeah, just double down on it. Unfortunately, you have to double down now to get the same results that he kind of put 25 years ago, right? But it's all about consistency. Elevates your brand, positions you as a connector, strengthens your trust and loyalty with your people, and then ultimately it improves the client experience, which again is just trust. Okay. So here's your plan. There's probably any slides. This is probably it. Basically, calculate your annual touches, understand your reach, define your partnership tiers, schedule 10 to 15 conversations, secure 46 ambassadors, execute the marketing consistently. That's the big thing there. Now you have people paying. You can't drop the ball on that, right? You have to be consistent because that's what they're paying for. Okay. and then review monthly. What I mean by that is you've got to show them every month what you did for them. No different than a listing or a seller that you're kind of out there listing, right? End of the week, hey, we had this many showings, this was their feedback, this is what we're gonna be doing, this is your listing's gonna be in MLS still, I'm gonna be publishing it on Facebook, I'm also gonna be sending out my newsletter, right? You're constantly telling your sellers what you're doing, what you've done, what you're doing in the future, no different than your partners, right? Hey, this is what we've done for you this month, this is where your brand's kind of exposure was at in different placements, and that sort of thing. Right. Any questions on that one? And ultimately, again, just going back to if you want a wealthy business, I genuinely think this is the place. Right? Allows you to market to your people, gives you confidence and wealth in your business.
John, the groups you're working with, how many employees did you have? Or was it just like?
So sometimes they're all over the place. Sometimes it's a solo agent to teams that are like sometimes there's 20 or 30 pages. Yeah, so to your point, I think it doesn't have to be big. I mean, here's the other thing. This is kind of a piggyback from my training last week on events, right? So events are big. It's probably one of the biggest expense in this whole program, right? I mean, you can get away with potentially sending, obviously database sizes are what's going to dictate price, but you can implement a fairly inexpensive direct marketing, you know, where you're potentially spending, depending on what database sizes, maybe let's call it $2,000 a year or something, right? And yet events can, I mean, you could easily spend $2,000 on one event. Very, 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 very simple. But the thing is, events have, if you do quarterly events, so for the year, that's like 24 touch points to your audience, right? So if you're not investing in the events, just know that you're missing the opportunity to touch your people probably a third of the time for your entire database touch program, right? Because just know that you have an invitation, you have a reminder, database calls, right? TCPA compliant calls to your database. It's an excuse to call your database, and a lot of people don't do that, right? Well, there's a lot going on. One, events are intimidating, expensive, so therefore I'm not going to do them. And now that I don't have a real reason to call and invite my people to give them something, I'm not going to call them because I just don't want to call them to sell them something, right? So the opportunity is what is basically seeping through if you don't do events. And this is a way for you to make sure that happens. Because 24 touch points throughout the year is super important. I mean, that's almost all of what Gary Keller told you, 33, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because an individual agent, the thing that I noticed, I feel it by my soul, is the built-in accountability that contacting these vendors to partner with them, actually, it starts you down the path. Like, if you do this, you're going to stay consistent because you have to, because we have people that are counting on you. So it's almost like the benefit is like, if you're not doing it and you need to push, this is what you need to do, because the people that are paying you are silently pushing you.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's what I said. Like, if you go back to presenting, you know, you're showing them monthly what you're doing. You better not be dropping any balls in your consistency in your touches, because somebody's now paying you, right? So yeah, it definitely will hold you to what you have to do, for sure. Any other questions? Oh, actually, let me get back to that thing that you said about like you're constantly trying to like more or less pick up vendors. It's kind of astonishing how well your clients are reading. Okay, so I've been doing this, running this kind of program now for it was probably close to a decade for different people. And there's some teams that have had 25 members for 7 years. right? They lost like 3 people because they just, they shift some marketing things. And they were just maybe not some core values fits to begin with. But people love it. You don't have to, I kind of heard a little bit of potential work there. If there's anything on the conversion rates of these, like now again, gotta go through that kind of spiel on how to kind of define your people first, right? Gotta choose the right ones versus somebody super cold, but if you meet with them, it's almost, you should expect them to sign. Okay, so it really is super simple to get them, convert them, and retain them. So you don't have to consistently be like, okay, 6 months goes by and you lost 4 partners, and now I gotta generate 6 new partners or whatever. It just, if you provide them with the value, you show them what you do. It's a very, very strong relationship.
Now, I would imagine that we're probably already providing referrals to these people right now.
Yeah.
We're just not monetizing the relationship.
That's the other thing too, these are people that you've likely given hundreds of referrals, you know what I mean, already. And not only that, now that they're paying you now, so you're probably also not the only real estate relationship, right? They probably have a dozen other real estate agents that are in the top 20 or whatever, that they're consistently trying to share their wealth of lead generation, right? But now if they're paying you money, they're gonna be a little bit committed to giving you that referral to some other person. Does that make sense?
To speak a little bit to that on to, the market center, we have preferred vendors. We actually meet with them on the quarterly, and then cut to that, for example, but that's one of the things that we talk about, is, first one was working, are they getting what they're. Sometimes you have to remind them, like, oh yeah, I sent you Jane Doe last week, I have to now, and making sure that they're saying out loud all the referrals that they're getting, and then it's programmation like what's not working. What do you think isn't working up to this relationship? And oftentimes it's little things, so then you go, hey, great, I'm so happy that you shared it, let's work on that together. And I think that's where the real value comes in, because then you start to show like how you care about this, and I want this to feel a big way, like it's all want me to feel like I'm just asking for your need every time on Sunday. We sent out emails yesterday because we're starting to go down our version of the branding customer program this year. And one of the vendors responded back that they're fun shop doing that because of their experience with other bridges where it can feel like it's just take all my money and then get it from you again.
I asked this.
Exactly, just throwing your logo up on brochure and the training room or something like that. So you can speak to it, like this is so much more than that. This is a relationship.
Scratch their backs, they scratch yours.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Is anybody gonna go do this?
I got tweets that I'm gonna put in my stuff really cool.
What's number one thing holding you back? If you were to like just, hey, I would love to grow my business a little bit, I'd love to invest in some marketing. I just found a way to not have to pay for anything. What might be kind of like the thing?
How to approach a prospective partner and to get past on, okay, so what are you getting information?
Yeah, so right there goes to. Here, right? So understand what value you're going to exchange for what they're giving you. And create a visual showing them. Now, granted, one thing I didn't put here is, tier 1 cost $100 a month. Tier 2 costs $200 a month or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? That's up to you guys to kind of put behind and understand the value that you have based on your reach. Like I just kind of gave you an example of what that outcome would look like. Right? Would that be kind of
Sort of, so, yeah, so tier 1, tier 2, gotcha, okay, so if you and I were to enter into this partnership, here's what I'm gonna do for you to help promote you. and, vice versa. But also targeting an appropriate partner for a real estate type of, agreement like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there should be, and again, this should be, again, there's. I don't know where I came up with this phrase, that there's 15 things that happen when a property goes under contract. But there's all sorts of stuff that happen, like potentially you need, a circuit breaker is out or something, so I had an electrician going in and kind of prep. The buyer had to get a mortgage, potentially talk to a financial planner first about if this is a smart time to buy a home. And then, then they got photographers listing photos, chimney sweeps, hey, make sure that's done, there's all sorts of things that are so not only that, but it's now anybody that you've personally spent your entire life with, that you're really connected to, that you just want to help, that has a small business.
Okay, so that part of my life is, 3.5 hours away.
Okay.
Where it came from.
Okay.
But to your point, like chimney sweeps, I mean, one of our partners that Dave Hooke has documented was chimney sweep systems. They're down in Carlisle.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, so yeah. Are you afraid to use the Dave Hooke Team's vendor? Is that what the thing is? Because just know that there's no.
well, I understand that, but since they're an affiliated partner of us, we have to say affiliated. We can't, how can I leverage their service?
So you gotta put some sort of presentation together. Just again, when I said about like the listing presentation, it'd be no different than you would like be going on like a listing. If you're going to go try to kind of convert a seller to kind of get them to sign for a listing.
Right.
So you have to show them the value, give them some sort of prop, right? Some sort of value proposition, likely a little brochure or something, or show them, hey, this is the process, this is the value you're going to get if you give me this X amount of money, right? No different than that.
Okay.
But the thing is, I guess mine, I would just, there's an abundance of opportunity out there.
I'm sure there is. I'm trying to get my arms around what, who, and why. At this point.
And I think ultimately it just comes down to this, right? And specifically this. Now I understand it sounds like you probably just moved and maybe your database is kind of outside the local immediate area currently. Is that right?
Part of it, yeah, but since I've been here, I have my database. I mean, I have electricians, I have plumbers, I have drywallers, I have researchers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Sure.
As I call my guys.
That's it.
But there's not this. So, like my tree guy is a really, really good guy. He's kind of I struggle with working with cell phone companies that run their business out of a cell phone. They're hard to track down, hard to find, can't get a face-to-face with them. So, and a lot of those people are cell phone contractors.
Exactly. These are face-to-face meetings, yeah, for sure.
Back to your 2 tiers, I think this is maybe where the market side overcomplicate this, because we have like 4 tiers.
Oh, so again, this is just very generic.
So
This is just to show you likely want to give them at least 2 options.
These 2, okay.
Yeah, just to show versus just one option. I think that's the biggest thing. I just want to, because just giving somebody one option where it's likely comes with a higher cost too. It's like all or nothing of those, what I mean? I just wanted to show you that you can break that down.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. So I was like, oh, yeah, I overcomplicated it. Do you, when you're doing the tiers, the one thing that sometimes I struggle with is figuring out, well, is what I'm adding worth this much more per month?
Yeah, so going back and quantifying. That's okay. So like basically calculating everything, calculating their cost. It is gonna, so when you're trying to generate a cost for a curated database. Whoa, how much does that cost, right? And then It's like, I have no clue. I have no clue what my database is worth. So then I gotta go back to quantifying all these things. And then you gotta put some magic numbers to that. It's up to you then, you know what I mean? And then it's almost like, okay, if I were to put the number, my first paycheck into these places, how does it personally feel? And if I was on the receiving end of it, how would I feel? Would I truly feel that there's value for what she said? Do you know what I mean? Would I pay? Yeah.
Okay, no, I.
Any other questions? Any other hesitations? Any other mindset shifts that we need to potentially work over to, again, just get you away from the spontaneous acts. Hey, I'm gonna be hosting. Get together, picnic, let's do it. You know, spring starts in 2 weeks. Can you sponsor this for me? Right? Yeah, oh no, now it's just like, what do you
Maybe for next year.
Yeah, you know, so try to get you away from that to potentially starting at the beginning of the year. Hey, January, January, reset of everything, right? I know for a fact, I want to at least have 2 events this year. Okay, one's gonna be in the spring and one's gonna be in the fall, right? So now I need to collect sponsorships and brand ambassador members, whatever it might be for this, right? Just try, or whatever other maybe, right? So just try to do it at the beginning of the year and plan ahead versus being spontaneous in 2 weeks in advance. Okay, sound good? Anything else?
Yeah, when you had your 40 and you said mind shifts, I was gonna say, oh yeah, I got a head full of that.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you, John. Thank you.